Thank you. Hello and welcome to Job Club, everyone. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. If you want to toggle the icon to participants here, or panelists, sorry, from participants to, let's see here, all panelists and attendees, I'm sorry, so that we can see who you are, see where you're coming from, give you a good morning. Thank you for joining us. Alrighty, you'll also be able to put some questions there so that we can share those questions with. Alrighty. So we can share the questions today with our speaker. Um, alrighty, thank you all for joining us today. Be sure to put something there in the chat. Alrighty, welcome to Job Club. We're so glad that you joined us today. We're going to get started shortly, okay? But for now, please locate the chat box and toggle the two icon from panelists to all to all panelists and attendees to ensure that we can see your questions and comments as we move through. Okay, so we're logging in from wherever you're logging in from. Please tell us, and so we can give you a good morning. Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you for Jeffrey from Louisville. Welcome. Good morning. Good morning, Kathy from Winchester. Thank you for joining us. Alrighty. Good morning. So glad that you're joining us today. Welcome another Jeffrey and Kathy. Alrighty. Thank you. Good morning. Alrighty, Leslie. Thank you. Good morning from Harrisburg. Good morning, Joe from Georgetown. Thank you for joining us today. Alrighty. Thank you, Kevin from Lexington. All right. Thanks for joining us today. Good morning, Mike from Lexington, Rebecca from Danville. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to have a great session. I know everyone's excited to hear about what we're going to talk about today. Interviewing, definitely, right? Alrighty, everyone, don't forget to toggle that icon from all panelists to all panelists and attendees to ensure that we can see your questions and comments, okay? Alrighty, thank you so much. Alrighty. We're about to start here shortly. Get everyone who's in attendance. Send us a good morning. Let us know where you're coming from. Be sure that you got that icon. Toggle the two icon from all panelists to all panelists. Alrighty, Paula from Glasgow. Thank you for joining us, Paula. Thank you. We hope that you enjoy the session today. Thank you so much for attending. Alrighty, we're gonna start here in about a minute. Okay, we have Trista from Glasgow. Thank you for joining us, Trista. Can't wait for you guys to see, to participate, I guess I should say. Listen in on today. It's gonna be great session, alrighty. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started in about another minute here. Good morning, everyone. Alrighty, from Goodwill Industries of Kentucky, thank you so much for joining us today. Alrighty. Okay, we're about to get started here in about less than a minute. Alrighty, and we're so glad that you're joining us today from Goodwill. Thank you. Alrighty, well, we're gonna go ahead and get started here today. Thank you all for attending, and we know we'll have more people coming in today, so please don't forget to toggle that icon so that you guys are able, from panelists to panelists and attendees, so you're able to put any comments in there that you would like and to ask questions during the session. Alrighty. Okay, so let's see here. Welcome. Alrighty. Job Club is currently hosted in a Zoom webinar, and participants in the webinar can hear and see presenters. Attendees are not active on mics or cameras, so if you choose to participate in the chat box, your name will be public to the group. I just want to be sure to mention that, and of course to mention if you want to open up a Word document on your computer so you can copy and paste anything that's in the chat box here, or if you just want to remember some questions, go ahead and type those in on a Word document. It always works great. Take some good notes away from here. Alrighty. Okay. All right, and of course we want to welcome to those that are viewing. Welcome to those that are viewing on Facebook Live. If you would like to engage with the Job Club community and receive our Job Club newsletter, please register at www.ukalumni.net/job club. Alrighty, we would love for you guys to be a part of that. So don't forget to do that. If you have a question at the end about what that what that link is, again, feel free to ask in the comment box. Well, I'll actually put that in there for you. So, alrighty, and once again, welcome. I see that Goodwill is here with us, so employers and recruiters. are always welcome at Job Club. Employer guests may have speaking privileges to share 1 to 5 minute spotlight to share active job leads with the group later in the program. Alrighty, and of course, some people in the webinar are conducting a confidential job search, and so let's please be respectful of privacy for those job search and others. Check out Job Club related articles included in our Job Club reminder emails. Please keep engagements in the chat box positive. And once again, thank you all. Good morning. I hope that you enjoy this session. Great.
Thanks, Nicole.
You're welcome, Diana.
So let's get started with our agenda. And I again want to reiterate that we do welcome you to Job Club. And I hope you're circling the second and fourth Tuesday of every month, because we are going to unveil an exciting summer schedule very soon. We're finalizing it, and we won't want you to miss one session, one speaker, because we know that you will benefit from this in your job search. Today, we're going to share some success stories where we've got a fabulous main speaker. We're going to share some active job leads, partner updates, and we'll tell you about that very next topic and speaker of Job Club at the conclusion. And this is our team. I am Dinah Doggett. I'm the Family and Consumer Sciences Extension Agent with Cooperative Extension. Caroline Francis is on AL annual leave today, and we send her our regards, but Caroline is the Director of Alumni Career Services. Amanda is with us, and she's Associate Director of Alumni Career Services. And Nicole, you just heard from, is an Employment Specialist with UK STEPS. Ellie Goodman is in operation. She's guiding our slides today, and Hannah is with UK Alumni Association. And again, we always mention Suzanne Smith because she is operating us, helping us in background details as well. And our mission. We always like to just emphasize that our mission is to provide a positive environment for job seekers, to network and learn best practices for your job search. And again, those are the dates, second and fourth Tuesday. We don't take summers off. We don't take any month off. So you can count on us being here. And you can find a schedule of our topics at www.ukalumni.net/jobclub. So check out our schedules. And again, we'll be sharing that summer one real soon. Well, we want to always, and first of all, welcome our first timers. And if this is your first time, we're glad you're here. We want to know where you're from. So utilize that chat box. Tell us where you're from and let us know you're a first timer. If we were in person, which we hope to be sooner rather than later, we always congratulate and welcome first timers. So let us know where you're at in the chat box today. And I want to remind you that you will receive a follow-up survey later. And this feedback really does help us place you in our notification system for future programming. I want to remind you about our free resources. If you haven't checked those out, do so. They're online now, and that means that you have easy access at any time. There's job search, questions and answers. There's Central Kentucky networking opportunities. We have staffing agency info, articles of interest that we change from time to time. That's very relevant, and a resume review. And then we also want to invite you to join our Central Kentucky Job Club sharing community site on LinkedIn. That's a group that we really do invite you to look at that in the interim of the 2 weeks, because we put some job leads there that are very current and might be outdated by the time we get to our next session. So check that out. Join us. And now it's time for success stories. And we always love for you to share those virtually in the chat box. So if you want to do that, please type those in right now. And I'm going to share one, someone that has allowed us and given permission today. But the chat box really does reach out to everyone and encourages them with whatever level of success that you have attained in the last couple of weeks. And our last session was, that wonderful panel of HR. Uh, and they just shared so many ideas and strategies for job search. So if you have employed any of those, if you have utilized that advice, let us know that, because that's a success. You came to Job Club, you heard, you listened, and then you put into practice the information. So let us know that and put it in the chat box if you've got something that you would like to share today. And I would like to share right now a great success story from Cynthia Barnes. And Cynthia has a new position. She is a development officer role with the United Way of the Bluegrass. And this is her message to us this morning. For me, the job search was all about finding ways to stay positive despite many interviews without job offers. Remember your value and don't let disappointment get you down. You never know what factors outside of your control are at play. And when it's right, you will feel justified for your faith in yourself and your skills. So we congratulate Cynthia today. We're always just thrilled when we learn of those of you that have succeeded in that job search and found meaningful employment that fits your passion. So congratulations, Cynthia. And again, let us keep reminding you that we love to just hear any level of success. It doesn't have to be that you've landed the job. It means that you are persevering and finding some positive feedback. All right, so now we're going to start our program, and it's my privilege to introduce our speaker of the day, Mark Williams. He's the career advisor at the Stuckert Career Center at the University of Kentucky. And Mark is no stranger to Job Club, and we welcome him back with open arms. I'm going to give you a brief bio, and then I'll turn it over to Mark for the rest of the session. Mark was raised in Southfield, Michigan, and graduated from Michigan State University with a bachelor's in accounting and a master's in hospitality business. After college, he worked as an accountant for a public accounting firm, insurance company, and an assistant controller for a university. Over time, he realized that his purpose and passion was serving students and helping them transition from college into their careers. He served as a community director at Michigan State University, an academic support program specialist at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and a career advisor for the GIES College of Business. But we claim him at the University of Kentucky, and we welcome you, Mark, and are so thrilled that you could join us today.
Thank you for having me here today. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here. I know it's early in the morning, but guess what? There's some great information to get first thing in the morning. They always say the early bird gets the worm. And so it's springtime, so hopefully we got a lot of worms that we can get between now and the rest of the summer. And so I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for you to be here, and hopefully I have some information that will help you in your career aspirations. And so what I'm going to do is get started right away. Feel free to ask as many questions as possible, whatever you would like to know as I go throughout this presentation. Hopefully we can have some interaction as well, and I'll give you some things to kind of think about. There's some questions along the way, and so hopefully we'll have some great interactions in this process. And so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this and really just talking about this virtual interviewing aspect. So today it's really about lights, camera, interview. All right, lights, camera, interview. How are we preparing for a virtual interview? I want to first of all start by saying that virtual interviewing will be the thing moving forward, in my opinion. Being someone in career services now for about 5 years now, and looking at how virtual interviewing has been progressing along the way. Even prior to a lot of what we've seen with the pandemic, there's still been this aspect of time saving by doing virtual interviewing, cost savings, and it looks different now even than what it looked like 2, 3 years ago. And so I don't see it going away anytime soon. I see it being a very important aspect of what interviewing is moving forward. And to be able to share this knowledge with you now will hopefully be able to help you prepare for future opportunities. And so when we talk about lights, camera interviewing, we're really talking about how do we maintain in this virtual interviewing space? What are some of the etiquettes to really consider? But also want to give you some interview tips while you're interviewing. And I think there's a duality with that, in that interviewing is still hopefully going to be the same, but the process and how we prepare for it is going to be different when we talk about being in a virtual interview space. And so a new show for me that I've really started to get into is The Voice. All right. I love The Voice because you hear all these great singers and you have all the judges with their backs turned. I think for us, many of us, interviewing is just like this show. We get on stage, we have what we're going to say in our heads, and we're just ready to just let it go. All right. We're on this platform to be able to let the world know, or specifically these judges, that we have what it takes to reach the top. We have what it takes for them to want to hit that button and turn around and want to choose us for that job or for that position. And while we're on stage, we might have a lot of different things going through our head. And some of us, we may have interviewed for 4 different companies. And then we see 4 different people turn around. And when they turn around, what we're saying is, who do we want to work with? Who do we want to choose? And so even a show like The Voice is interviewing. It is interviewing in its own way. And what we're doing is we're preparing for this moment right here. I want you. All right. I want you. You want to hear that button. And for many of us, we're waiting for it just as soon as we get done interviewing. Hey, hit that button and tell me that you want me right now. And so as we think about the show, The Voice, we see the aspect where people stand on stage right away. When we see the camera rolling, we know that they are prepared. And I would say that is the old way of interviewing, to where we only have to worry about standing on stage. But the question I want you to think about is, what types of preparation happens before someone sings, before that singer gets on stage? What are those things that are happening in the background? Because virtual interviewing is really focusing now on that background preparation that we didn't have to do. Virtual interviewing really looks at the totality of, now you're in control to make sure all of these things are working properly so that you can get on stage, perform your best, and wait for that button to sound where they say, I want you. And so as you think about that, you want to start thinking, what are those background pieces? I want to give you a few of them right here. When you start thinking about lights, how is the lights focusing on someone to make sure that we can see them performing at their best, that best angle for someone. So for me, it's my left side. I love my left side. It's my best side. Okay. And so as we think about that, how is the lighting prepared when thinking about a show like The Voice? When you think about the sound quality, can you hear this person projecting their voice? Can you hear them singing? Are you able to really follow that the background singers are not overshadowing the performance of the singer, or they're not singing too loud into the mic? How do you make sure you're balancing that sound quality, the equipment? You know, the last thing you want to see is that someone can't turn the chair around because no one tested the chair. You want somebody to want you, but the chair has to want to work. And so you got to test the equipment, make sure all the lighting is working properly, making sure that these things are not going to interfere with the interview process or the singing on stage, and even staging, cameraing, positioning. How are people standing on stage? How are you being seen? Is the camera at the right angle to make sure that we see your movements along the way, or maybe some things that we don't want to see? And so as we think about the totality of what it takes to prepare, just to have one person on stage at a single moment, we now have to control all of these background things that someone else typically does. And even when you think about going in person for an interview, all you worry about is coming in and singing. Typically, those who are providing the interview have done all the background things. They prepared for you to come and visit. They prepared on where you'll be interviewing at, whether or not you have water or coffee, and all these different things. So all you have to do is present. And so as you're thinking about these things, I want to give you some tips on how to work on the preparation on the back end, as well as some things to help you while you're on stage. And so the first thing I want to do is kind of talk about the difference between your presence and the prep and the presentation. Okay. So when we talked about preparing for the staging in itself, that's really talking about the presence. What is seen? What is being seen? Before you even say a word, really your presence is the stage. How are you preparing the staging so that you can interview in this virtual space? The image you project on camera, what does your background look like? Are you able to project your voice into the camera? What are the things that are seen? Because interviewing takes place before you even say a word. When you walk in, your presentation and how your presence is will always be a part of the interview. But now it has expanded to the background in addition to how we present ourselves in going into that moment. So these are the unspoken words. I would probably equate this to, and though due to COVID times, things have changed, it's almost like your background is almost that handshake. So when you go in, a handshake says a lot about someone in an interview. And due to the times now, that's definitely going to change. But you can also consider your presence, your background, and how you prepare for that as that initial handshake. Now, as you talk about your presence, we also want to talk about the presentation. What is being said? How are you sharing your information in a virtual interview and making sure that your story is being told? So let's first talk about the presence. So first thing we're going to talk about is lighting, the best appearance. How is your lighting within your either your room or where you may be positioned? Lighting is really, you want to be directed towards the face. You want it to be able to show who you are, and your lighting can really either give a presence of the fact that you are here in this moment. And so, first of all, some of the best lighting is going to be your natural light. That is always the best lighting. And that's just something that a lot of photographers or those videographers, they'll really emphasize that natural light is the best light. And so the more you can have windows open, position yourself in certain spaces where that natural light really hits, it's going to really highlight a lot of the characteristics of your face, but also it's going to highlight and give a great presence in the room, in the atmosphere that you're in. And so what you definitely want to do is get on a Zoom or some type of web interfacing face-to-face and just practice different lighting positionings. A common thing a lot of people also you like to use are ring lights. And so you want to make sure that you're practicing with how you are presenting yourself with these different lightings. You want to position the computer in different places to make sure it captures the best light. And even if you're using other kind of artificial light, whether it be a lamp or a ring light, and you wear glasses, be mindful of how the glasses can sometimes reflect what that light source is. And so you may have to adjust your glasses. So in my case, I have on glasses, but I'm using a lot of the backlight to really emphasize my facial expression. So sometimes what you may have to do is position your glasses down to remove the ring light, or position them at a different angle. Sometimes you may have to lower the lighting a little bit in one area and accent it in another. And so just the more you practice and play with that lighting, it will really help you in the interview and also make you feel more comfortable in the interview. And so these are, again, the preparation that takes place well prior to the actual interview date. And so as you're preparing for this, also look at where you are positioned in different rooms and how that can really help with that. When you start talking about the sound quality, is the audio clear? And you want to make sure you're able to use your voice and have that projection, that pitch. And for some of us, if we have a loud projection or a loud voice, we might want to move back just a little bit or lower our volumes, because our microphones can really catch that sound and project that sound. And sometimes we may have to get a little bit closer so that we're being caught in what that is. And so for many of us also, we'll have to understand what is the quality of the speaker and also where we're at. And so that background noise can really interfere with that microphone presence. And so the quieter the atmosphere, the better the sound quality. And be mindful that some of us will actually use other type of equipment to help us in that process. So I see a lot of times we may use earphones, the iPad, the earbuds, and making sure that those work, testing that quality to make sure that we're not overpowering in the microphone. And sometimes if we're wearing certain clothes, it can actually interfere and muffle the sound. And so the more you can use more hand-free, amplify your voice into a microphone, the better things will be. And so you want to make sure, thinking about that speaker headphone quality, make sure your volume is up so that you can hear those who are interviewing you. And then again, practice with someone on Zoom or some type of web facing interface. Um, and so the more you go ahead and take that time to be able to practice in a space with someone, the better it will be. Equipment. You want to make sure everything is working properly. Now, one thing about me, I love to tell stories. I love to tell about someone else's, um, not necessarily a situation, but how we can learn from others. And so you want to make sure all of your equipment is working properly. Make sure your laptop is charged. Make sure you're checking your internet connection. That's very important with the internet connection, because sometimes when it goes in and out, it can really interfere with the interview process. And I would actually suggest, if you have the opportunity, using an Ethernet sometimes better than a Wi-Fi. To be plugged into the actual to an actual landline, typically you see a better connection, a more stable connection, whereas Wi-Fi can sometimes go in and out. And so being mindful of that and really connecting with that can definitely help you be able to have a more consistent connection um, to the internet in that regards. And so also make sure you're familiar with your equipment. So being on, let's say, a Zoom versus a WebEx versus Teams, making sure you're familiar where different things are. And even if you have like a new laptop, understanding where the controls are, that's going to be helpful in being able to do that. And so as you begin this process of tampering with equipment, test it over and over again. That's going to be very important. So to give you a good example, I recently had a conversation with my friend, and we have a mutual friend who's really interested in going to law school. And so they were taking their LSATs, and a lot of what we're talking about now, they did everything wrong in the process. And so in preparing for their LSATs, a part of it was uh, he had his laptop, he was ready to go, and so he's taking it, and into an hour and a half into it, what he realized is that his battery was low. Well, he never charged his laptop. And so in addition to that, because of all the noise and everything else around him and how he was positioning himself, he was struggling to concentrate on the LSAT. Well, sure enough, his battery dies and the computer cuts off. And so now he's fumbling to figure out where the charger is, where things are, how do I log back in? And he completed the LSAT, but he didn't finish all the questions for one of the sections. And it really impacted his score. And for many of us, we want to make sure that we have everything ready to go with our equipment so that we don't have situations where things may happen where the laptop cuts off. If we have an earbuds that they go off, and now you're shuffling to figure out how to adjust to the sound quality. And so make sure you're testing all of your equipment ahead of time. And then staging your camera position. You want to make sure you are centered right into the camera. So sometimes you have to prop your laptop. Sometimes you have to use different things to be able to make sure that you are even and looking directly into the camera. Now, and using different props, make sure that they're stable. I'm actually using a prop right now for my Surface Pro that's helping me stay centered into this presentation. Now, I made sure it was something that was sturdy, and so it's a little piece of it's almost like a weighted paper holder. And so right now it's doing what it's supposed to do. It hasn't failed on me yet, so I'm glad about that. And so what I really want you to do is to, again, look at different ways to position that camera so that you're looking directly into it. And so as you're really doing all these different things, when we start talking about lighting, equipment, staging, these are all of our responsibilities to make sure we are prepared in advance. And so here's some things you want to be mindful of. And I kind of mentioned this early in the conversation before is here's some tips. Be mindful of distractions. First of all, people, you know, who's around you? Who are the people? Who are the people that are really impacting whether or not you are able to focus on what's going on? Sometimes we cannot leave a situation because we have family, we have other people that we are around that we cannot get away from that. And so, how do we go about managing the people and the circumstances around us? One of the things definitely want to let people know ahead of time. Hey, I'm in an interview. It'll be best, you know, if you can give me the next hour to be in this space or this position, or can you go over here where the noise is minimized? Be mindful of also where you go in terms of if you can get out, making sure you're able to be in an area where you can actually control more of the surroundings. Okay, so if you're interviewing, let people know. One of my favorite commercials so far is that Folgers commercial where the mother has a child behind her and she's like moving the cup and trying to do this. And a lot of times, you know, those things can be distracting, unfortunately, but it's also a part of life. And so just want to see how you can minimize those. And so when you think about the places, where are you? You want to avoid kind of crowded places and also what I call unavoidable noises. And so when you think about is construction going on around where you are people using things, or is there a lot of birds in the background? And sometimes we have to look at what are those noises that we cannot control and how do we minimize being in that space? And so really trying to avoid large crowds, areas where people can come in the background and be very distracting, not only to you as you have this noise interfering, but also to that process in the interview. Using background images. So for example, this is a background image. And if I were to pull down this background image, you would see my office. And that's why I have the background image up, because I'm still cleaning up my office and still making some arrangements in there. But background images allow people not to see what's going on. And so sometimes we may have pictures and things that can be distracting in the background that we don't want to interfere in that process. So use different filters, use different backgrounds, but again, test them in advance. My mother, she is new to this virtual space, and we had a good hour conversation about background images. And she was trying to use a background image and she was just fading into the background. And she never understood why. So we had a conversation and her computer wasn't compatible for background images. So that's why you want to constantly test those to see whether or not your computer is compatible. And again, looking at the equipment, what is going on that may prevent you from using background images. Now, if it's a question of a computer isn't compatible, what you might want to do is just find a blank wall in the background. So something that's going to be either a white wall or just a solid color wall. That's going to be really helpful if you don't have that compatibility. So that was a lesson that I learned real quick. I'm glad we had that conversation because she was actually doing presentations herself and was noticing that she was fading into the background. So make sure that your computer is compatible with it. And then the products, what is around you? You want to make sure that you turn your phones off. If you're not using your phone as something, as a part of your interview, whether sometimes we will actually use our cell phone as that interfacing, but if not, turn it off, put it on silent, make sure that you don't have things around you. Sometimes clocks are something else that can really interfere with that. And so make sure you are turning things off that you are able to do in those situations. I do another presentation. I do a meeting pretty much every Monday at 6. And I always know when it's time to close at 7 because there's someone whose phone goes off and it says it is now 7 p.m. So I know that's my time to close. So in that situation, I tell them to leave it on because that helps keep me on a good time frame on how to get things done, in a timely manner. But For you, that may not be the thing that you want to have going on during your interview. And so really make sure you control those things around you. And also, as we just hopefully just saw, unfortunately, in this situation, even when it comes to your email on your actual laptop, sometimes we have our notifications going on. Make sure we silence those as well so that those don't get distracting, especially if you get a lot of emails coming in. So I want to give you some tips now about presentation. We talked about the presence. What does it look like in terms of the outside things, the things that we have to control for the virtual space? But let's give you some tips about how to actually do some things in the interview process. And so one of the things I always love to talk about is, for many of us, we look for that home run answer. When it comes to interviewing, we always want that one thing that just stands out. We want to be able to just have one question, and when it's done, it's done. Even when it comes to the question about tell me about yourself, we want that one home run question that they hit the button and they just say, I just want you. But for a lot of us, we have to realize that a lot of our answers may be more like this: just getting on base. There is more than one way to score when it comes to baseball. Home runs are great. They're exciting. They're lovable. You just walk around the base and feel like you've made it. But for some of us, it's about just getting on base. Because once you get on base and you get to that next question and that next question, next thing you know it, you have already made it around all four. You have made it home. You've earned the run. And for some of us, we can steal a question, here or there with something that we didn't anticipate. But the reality is, there's more than one way to score. So just get on base. It's okay if you don't have that home run answer, but to have an answer is getting you one step closer to where you want to be. Okay. And here's a question. I'm going to get to this about my background. One of the things about my background, if you actually go on our website, the Stuckert Career Center, we have free backgrounds that you can download. And that's something I can put in the group chat a little later, just so you can have quick access to that. So, and thank you earlier for your comment as well, Tony. Just wanted to say thank you for that. So with this, you want to get on base. All right. Now, as we're talking about some things to do to prepare in terms of that preparation, do research on the company. You want to look at the company website, be able to go on there, look at who they are, their mission. I thought that was real awesome about what we just saw with Job Club, just in terms of knowing their mission. What is their purpose? How are you really seeing yourself integrating with who they are, understanding the culture? You can learn a lot about a company just from their website. And so that's one way to kind of do that research. Talk to people. Sometimes we may know someone within the company. Have that conversation. What do you love about the company? What are some things I need to know about this aspect of the company? And so to have that interaction with someone that's actually in there helps you better prepare for the interview. Looking on Glassdoor, LinkedIn, you can really learn a lot about someone based off of their LinkedIn. If you're privy to information about who you're interviewing with, do research on them. Be able to understand some of their background, because it may help you with some of your questions in the interview. Okay, so some potential questions you might get is, what do you know about us? That is an actual interview question. What do you know about us? And you want to be able to show that you are being proactive and ready to be able to look at the fact that you are wanting to be in this company. You already see yourself in this company. So we need to make sure that you understand to do your research. Now, the other thing is you need to have questions to ask them. This is crucial in the interview process. And the reason why is because this one aspect can really make or break your interview. I say that because I sat on a committee once back at University of Illinois for a job that they were hiring for. I actually had a good friend who was applying for that job. And we got to the phone interview and we were getting through the last question. The question we asked is, do you have any questions for us? And she politely said, no, I think all my questions were asked earlier when I talked to somebody else. As soon as we got off the phone, the first thing they said was, we don't want to bring her to the next round. Because if you don't have any questions for us, then are you really interested in being with us? And so that really made an impact on her process in the interview as a candidate. And so you want to be able to ask some questions. And so one of the things I use as a process is 3 to 5 questions to ask. You want to have those ready for an interview. You want to have about 3 to 5. You never know how a question can get asked kind of quick versus some questions where it may take longer, but to have that extra bank of questions is really going to be helpful. Now, how do I figure out what kind of questions to ask? Well, here's a process I would recommend that you do. First of all, you want to think of 3 to 5 things that you value in your next job or career. 3 to 5 things that you value. So an example would be location, whether or not there's professional development, opportunity for career growth, uh, diversity, inclusion. What does that look like for you in your next career? And so as you're thinking about those questions, now you're asking things that are going to be what I call authentic, that you are actually interested in learning, that may have 2 things helpful for you. Number one, if you have multiple opportunities, first of all, it helps you kind of figure out which one you may want to take. And so if you have 3 different things you're choosing between, how do you know what is best for you? And so by having that odd number of questions, I call that my tiebreaker, it helps me understand based off of these questions, this is where people rank. The other thing it helps you understand is whether or not this job is a good fit. And so by having those conversations will really help you understand what is the best experience you may be looking for in that next career opportunity. And so as you're asking questions, I always like to tell people you are interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. And if you go in empowered, knowing that this is about me learning about you, then it hopefully feels like it's an even playing field, in that I am learning whether or not this is a potential opportunity that's going to help me out. So, company culture, that's a great one. How are you asking those questions about the company culture? Do you see yourself fitting in? And so, those are just opportunities and questions you kind of want to think about ahead of time. Review your resume. A lot of times we'll present our resume and we'll put it out there, but when we start thinking about our skills and how they translate into the position, one of the questions they may ask you is, you know, tell us about this opportunity, or tell about this on your resume. You want to be able to think about what's on your resume ahead of time. How are you then taking these skill sets and being able to show them as it relates to the position? Everything goes back to the position that you're looking at. And so as you're listing those things on your resume and telling those stories, again, how are they translating to where you want them to go? And then practice, practice, practice. You want to review some of your common interview questions, especially behavioral questions. Those are very typical of where things are in terms of how interviews are taking place. Unless it's a technical position that you're applying for, they may ask for an assessment of skills or things, something like that. But really look at some of the types of questions you can get in terms of a behavioral question. What are some examples of a behavioral question? Give me a time when you had to work in a group setting and things didn't go as well as you thought. Or give me a time when you had to communicate something to someone about an analysis, and how did you go about getting them to understand your perspective? So as you're thinking about the skill sets for the job you're applying for, you can anticipate those things ahead of time. A common method that will help you with this is called the STAR method. It stands for situational, task, action, result. And that is a great formula to help you stay structured within the interview. And that will really help you be able to make sure you don't go with what I call down the rabbit's hole, where you think you're trying to answer the question and then it goes into another area and then it goes into another area. STAR method really helps things stay structured. And then again, find someone to practice with, give you that feedback. And if you're in this virtual space, record yourself. Send that to someone to help you give you some feedback about whether or not you are projecting yourself, whether or not you are showing a lot of hand motions. What are you doing that can really help you improve in that setting? Because the interesting thing about being in this virtual space, you don't always see what's going on. You can't always see how people are reacting in a situation, because sometimes you're looking directly into the camera and it's hard to really gauge what's going on as opposed to being in person. So that feedback really helps. So the more you practice, the more you get comfortable. And it's a great thing. I always love to tell people, it's almost like preparing for a fire drill. We practice fire drills all the time. And so being in that aspect where if something were to actually happen, We may have our nerves and everything else going on, but because we practice it so long, it's almost like a second nature, or it should kick in that I remember this based off the practice that I've done. And so it helps you kind of go through those even when you're feeling those nerves coming in. Or you got to practice before you get on stage. Hopefully, you're practicing that song, you're practicing that interview, so that when the spotlight is on, it might be a lot of nerves, but you're ready to deliver. Now, some things to kind of help you in the moment. In the moment, you want to dress for success. Dress like you're actually in the interview, like you're actually meeting with someone. And so you want to actually go in, have that suit or have that professional attire ready to go, head to toe. Be dressed for the moment, because in that moment, it almost feels like it's a real interview. And sometimes, I've had students tell me I wore a pair of shorts, and then what happened was they had to get up and get something. So it got a little bit uncomfortable for them knowing that, hey, I got to reposition myself. So dress for success, be on time. Really recommend being at least 3 minutes early. We always talk about being somewhere 5 minutes early, at least to that 3 minute range. It allows for that time for the interviewer to know that you're here, you're ready, you're present. And then it also helps you understand if you need to work out anything technical as well. So by being there early, it helps. Uh, Look into the camera. That's one of the harder things to really adjust in this virtual space. We want to kind of look down and talk to the person in terms of the box that they're in. But by looking into the camera, it helps to really focus on whether or not you're trying to actually give the impression that you're talking to that person. Sometimes when you're looking into the camera, depending on where the person's positioned on your monitor, it actually looks like you're reading something. And so if I'm looking down right now, it can look like I'm reading as opposed to really engaging into the conversation. So one of the things you might want to do is position that box or position that person at the top. So then that way it keeps that eye contact with the camera as much as possible. And then be mindful of your nonverbals. We talked about hands and how they may be in there, facial expressions. If you have different facial expressions, you want to be mindful of that as well. And I didn't put this one on here as a bullet, but something that you also may want to do is have your resume file ready to share. That's one of the things I always recommend, in person or virtual. Be prepared to offer your resume. Uh, to me, it's almost like if we go out to eat for dinner and we go visit my mom and she wants to say, hey, here's some food. It's a good meal that I want to offer. Well, we're full. So we may say no, but it still feels good to be offered. And it also gives the impression of you're prepared for any type of situation. Sometimes they may have something going on their end that can be very technical. So have your resume ready to offer in case of a situation where they don't have access. And if they say no, that's okay, but you still look prepared for any type of situation. So some last tips here that will really help you with your presentation is really show your personality. This is the one thing I always love to stress, is because anyone can really duplicate a lot of your accolades, a lot of your achievements. There are a lot of things we can find 5, 10 other people, but the one thing no one can ever duplicate is your personality. The more you allow that to shine, the more you will really see whether or not you are fit for them and whether or not they're fit for you. Because we want to feel comfortable going into a space as much as possible. And to be honest, if you got the interview, they already know you qualified. They already know that you're qualified. And so they already know you're qualified, then you have already reached that step. And so being mindful of that can really help you change the perspective of why you're in this interview. So stay engaged in the conversation and not the questions. I think for many of us, we focus on answering the questions right or wrong. And sometimes what you'll really notice is there's not really a right or wrong. There are in most situations, but it's not as plain and dry cut as you may think. And the more you show you're engaged to the conversation, a lot of times it's more about how are you presenting the information more than the information itself. Now, it's something very technical where there's a definite answer, yes. And if you ever question whether or not you're on the right track, one of the things you can always ask is this question: did I answer your question? Now you put the ownership back on them in the interview to be able to let you know whether or not you are on the right direction or not. So stay engaged in a conversation. The more you create a sense of a conversation, the more the interview will hopefully flow. And for many of us, it will make you feel like it's going a little faster because we're having a great conversation. Now, interview through the issues. Things happen. All right. Things happen. Maybe something technical did happen. You did all this preparation. You did all the steps we talked about ahead of time. And now there's still something that's going wrong. Well, guess what? Interview through the issues. If something happens, keep moving forward. Keep showing as if everything is okay, because it also be able to show that um, it also is able to show us whether or not you are able to really stay engaged in the moment. It shows those soft skills that you can handle pressure situations. I recently did an interview with not an interview. We did a panel with some employers, and we had all the mics seemed to be active. We didn't mute everyone, and that was something I should have done because the student got on to the logged on to the presentation and used some some words that if their mother wasn't there, they wouldn't appreciate. And so it's almost like, what do you do now? What do you say? How do you respond when you have these employers here on this panel and this is going on? And so politely ask everybody to mute their mics and hey, we appreciate everyone being here. Mute your mics. And it was funny because the conversation I had afterwards with some people were, I didn't know, I wouldn't know what to do in that situation. Uh, you seem very poised about how you handle that situation. And so you're going to have issues. These things come up. It's technology. We always have an issue, but I'm pretty sure that most employers will be understanding of that and being able to really help you through that. But the more you show that you can interview through the issues, it really shows a lot about you and it can really elevate you in terms of who you are in this process. So your response on how you deal with the issues is a part of the interview. And the last thing I want to tell you today is tell your story. I'll be honest, interviewing is pretty much storytelling. And if you can tell a good story, you can really do well on the interview. And that's the least one thing that's one of my philosophies when it comes to interviewing. Tell a good story, get engaged with it, have fun, being able to draw people in with those interesting points, being able to know when to share enough information that just really highlights what you went through in a particular situation. And then by telling that story is also letting people know more about you. And so if you're ever looking a great place to learn about storytelling, uh, I like NPR. NPR is a great space that I use. It's called a Moth Radio. They typically comes on around Saturday, around 10, 11. There's some other kind of storytelling elements that go into that. And I just love listening to how other people tell their story. And then it helps me get that practice of how I will tell mine. How do I become comfortable in front of the camera, being able to articulate these things that I've done, my story over the past X amount of years to really say that you are the next part of my story. I want this job, this opportunity to be the next part of my story because this isn't the only place where we share our stories. When we start talking about bios and things like that, I want this place to be a part of what I share with others, to be able to then progress others to know that they can make it too. And so hopefully these are some tips, some things for you to really consider to help you in this virtual space, as well as how are you presenting this information as we start thinking about what does it mean to um, interview in a virtual space. So as we begin this whole thing, the stage is yours. Take control over it, take ownership of it. And even when that chair turns around, you still keep on interviewing. You still keep on sharing. Because when they all turn around, now the choice is yours to make about who do you want now that you know that they want you. So I want to open this up for any types of questions.
Thank you. Thank you. See, we have any questions here to pass along? Of course, I see you did mention or give some feedback about the question, the first question, and that was about the background for Zoom interviews, team interviews, things like that. Let's see here. Okay, so I do have, oh wow, okay, so we're getting some questions here. Well, first of all, I do want to mention that someone says that they're having to leave, but they want to let you know that this was very informative. So just to give you some feedback there, some positive feedback. But I have a question, and it's, well, sorry, Michelle has a question, and it says, how do you negotiate salary?
Great question. Negotiating salary is it's one of those things that I think we it's kind of tricky on how we do that. First thing want to suggest that you do is wait until you get the offer. I think a lot of times we want to jump into salary right away. Wait until you get the offer. Some of the things I've learned about negotiating salary is number one, ask the question: is there room for negotiation? It really depends on the position. Some positions, everyone come in at the same salary, and there are others that negotiation will be there. So, first question to ask is there room for negotiation? The second thing you want to consider is what is your reasoning for it? What is it that is going to really help show that why factor? I think some people like to negotiate because it's almost like, hey, let me see what more I can get. But it can also be what are those factors that you bring on an extra level? Is it a certification? Is it different, like another your work years of work experience, having a unique skill set that you know that others don't have on the job. The third thing is salary the only thing you can negotiate? And a lot of times it may be, how do I negotiate what I call the invisible money? Those things that may not be as prevalent that will actually have impact for you later on. Can you negotiate vacation time, travel, moving expenses, 401k? Those things can impact you later. I had an opportunity to negotiate. For me, I was receiving a moving bonus and I said, hey, can you put that into my salary? And so there are different ways to negotiate what those things look like. So hopefully that answers that question. Just first of all, asking the question, is there room for negotiation? And then being able to have those conversations about why, but looking at other areas where you can gain an additional compensation that may not be directly in the salary.
Okay, our next question. Do you have any tips for virtual interviews when an individual only has a cell phone to use?
Great question. Number one, you want to actually make sure your phone is charged. The other thing be mindful of is whether or not your phone overheats. That's one of the things that are very common in the virtual space with cell phones is that the more you use it, the more it heats up. And then you start to get those notifications where it needs to cool down. So make sure you have some type of cooling mechanism behind you that's going to really help with that. Number three, again, I think everything else applies prior to about making sure you check your lighting, making sure that you are in a stable position. And if you can, have something to hold the phone because you don't want to have your hand and it starts to shake and you're nervous and the camera starts moving. Have something that's going to really position that so that you can actually focus more so on the interview than trying to hold and maintain kind of that phone in your hand. So hopefully that answers that question.
Really good answer. Alrighty. So how do you, next question from Tony. How do you deal with ageism?
Uh, that's a great question. It's one of those things where um, hmm, ageism can really show up. First of all, in your resume. I know a lot of times when we look at resumes and people can kind of try to have their guess of how old you may be based off of years of experience and things like that. That is something that as you're using your resume and you get to the interview, a lot of it is still allowing your personality to shine. And in dealing with ageism, sometimes it's really about understanding what are you looking for in that next step and how are you also positioning yourself for that? Because if you're making a career pivot, then I like to call it is you've changed from age to something new where you can now show the new. And so as people look at your resume and how you're presenting yourself, you're entering into a new chapter. And so I call it the youth of my career. Yeah, I'm in a new stage, I'm in a new youth of it. And sometimes we have to ask ourselves, is this an opportunity for entrepreneurship? Is this an opportunity to say, I have so much skill set, why not do this on my own? And I hope I can make this reference in terms of the matrix. It's like bending the spoon, in that sometimes when we think about career trajectories, we think very linear and we think it has to go in a certain way. But we can always bend the spoon. We can change our minds, go in different paths, and do things that are unconventional, to where ageism is pretty much the age of opportunity if we are willing to look at it differently. So I always recommend looking at, what do I offer because of my experiences that I can just also bring to the table myself, and make another opportunity that way too. So hopefully that answers that question just a little bit. But again, it goes back to personality. If they bring you into the interview, they love what you have, and continue to just show that personality.
All right, great. We do have about 4 more questions here. So let's see here. The next one. Recently, I had an interview where you used a program to record answers to questions and was timed. I practiced beforehand, but had issues with the program. No practice was available prior. Any tips or tricks for those type of situations?
Great question. This is a newer form of interviewing, regarding where you don't talk to anyone, you just record your answer. And so for those types of interviews, again, still practicing in the camera and recording yourself, just to get familiar with those types of questions. That timing aspect is everything too. For some people who need to see a person, one thing you can do is actually put a picture of someone in behind the camera in your peripheral view, where you're looking at the camera, but also as if you're talking to someone. And that kind of helps with getting that feeling like I'm actually talking to someone, as opposed to talking to a camera. The more you also just practice those presentation skills, the more it can help you feel like you're ready for it, you're going through it. Another organization I would actually suggest is called Toastmasters, where it actually helps with presentation skills. The more you get familiar with that, it'll just be helpful in just answering questions, and also that confidence of knowing, again, I answered the question and I'm looking forward to that next opportunity. If something happened with the program and you have a number, I would say email that person just to reach out to say, hey, I noticed this about the program. Is there another opportunity? For me to either make up something, or what are the next steps if there was an issue on their side.
Alrighty. The next one here, it's kind of a statement, but it ties into something that you already mentioned. And Michelle said that she was asked yesterday about her salary expectations and have not been offered the job. The company did not post a salary range. So, what are your suggestions in those cases?
Look on Glassdoor. Typically, Glassdoor is a great tool to help you kind of understand the range of what salaries are going for. Just look for industry trends and see where you stand within that industry. Sometimes you may have to consider some things. Again, years of experience. Where are you now with your salary? Also, look at again, what are you looking for? Because sometimes with salary, again, different opportunities offer different things. I've known people to take a small salary decrease because it offers more work-life balance for what they're looking for. And so I would say do that research on the range within the industry, compare that to your years of experience, any certifications, expertise that you have, and then make a range. Literally just that. Here's where we are with here. And with that range, it allows them that opportunity. But sometimes you may be able to tell them, I'm also flexible, just to kind of leave it open-ended. So we'll see where they go from there. So, but Glassdoor is a great resource for that.
Okay, and I'm glad that I actually messed that question up. I thought they did not. She said they did post the range, but there are times, of course, I work in employment where ranges are not posted. So great information. But I just share that she did say they did post that. Let's see here. We have 1 more question here, and it says, "What are your thoughts on employers?" Okay, so you. I think this is something you already answered. What are your thoughts on employers who use an automatic virtual interview process where there's no person involved, where you are not interacting with anyone, but your response is recorded? So you've pretty much already answered that one. Let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any other questions, but we do have some awesome presentations, some thank yous. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and skills.
I want to
Um,
offer hopefully
Go
one
ahead.
more tip to
Yeah,
help
sure.
with I think there's a common thing. So when I help with interview prep, there's one thing I want to also emphasize is that sometimes um, with the facial expression, it really accents and helps to offset some of the things that other people may consider as a disadvantage. So some people may be very monotone, we may be soft spoken, and one of the things you might want to consider doing is smirking or smiling just a little bit. And that's going to really help with showing personality as well as showing some type of connection, engagement, because I think that can be hard sometimes, especially in a virtual space, as well as when doing one of those presentation, those interviews where there's no one on the other side. And so, for example, I always love to do this as an example. For some people, we talk like this, and it can also seem like we're disengaged. But even this little smirk can do the same thing with the monotone voice, and it adds a little engagement. So in facial expressions, use that to your advantage, especially if there's no one on the other side, because again, it shows a level of engagement, a level of personality where you're not reading anyone. So you don't know what's going on. So that's just another little tip to help along the way.
Awesome. All righty. And everything still comes in. All these positive notes here. Nice presentation. Looks like we have someone join us here from Chicago. Said great presentation. Yeah, thanks from McLean in Chicago, I should say. Skillfully delivered. Oh, we have an FYI here. Someone mentioned that they are a member of Lexmark Toastmasters Club, and that they meet on the first and third Tuesday of each month, and that everyone is welcome to visit anytime.
Yes,
Great.
Toastmasters is awesome, and they actually time you, so it helps you with that timing piece as well. So I definitely recommend Toastmasters as a great opportunity to build on those interviewing skills and presentation skills.
Alrighty. Okay. If that is it, you guys. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Mark, for this awesome presentation. And of course, this is my first time meeting you. I've heard about you, but my first time meeting you here on Job Club, my first time. So I'm definitely enjoyed it and look forward to working with you again and having you present for us again here at Job Club.
Thank you again for having me. And if I can be in any other service, I'll put my email in the chat in case you have further questions or want to reach out.
All righty, Mark. Thank you so much. Okay. All right, Diana, you have anything for us?
Okay, and I concur. Thank you, Mark. It was just amazing. I'm taking notes, and I think we all learned so much today. So we always appreciate Mark's sharing. Well, this is a time when we ask those that have jobs or those that need jobs can participate in this segment. So tell us what you're looking for in the chat box. If you are, if there's some area that you are currently searching out, then let us know that in the chat box. Attendees also have the opportunity to share job leads and job targets that could help others, play it forward. And then employers. If you have an active job lead, then click the raised hand function now, and we can let you speak and share that verbally, or you can share that also in the chat box. So we love to collect these leads, and you can also email us by noon today, and we will conclude those in our post-meeting job lead list. So that will come out this afternoon with our newsletter. So that's at UK Alumni Career at uk.edu. So you can give us those job leads at that time. We see in the chat box there's accountants, we've got business managers, that area of employment. We also see that Elizabeth is looking for a customer service, customer experience manager position. So you want to, you can always chat personally in the chat box to whoever is posting these. So do we have any other leads? Any raised hand?
No raised hands that I see, Diana.
Okay, so we will, again, just remember to email those to us by noon today, and we will include them. All right, we'll move on to the Job Club Facilitators News and Programs. And we'll begin with Extension. And again, you just saw Chicago. We know we have so many counties represented in cities throughout Kentucky that participate weekly with our job club. So I do want to direct you to your local cooperative extension office. Check out the websites, Facebook pages. There will be so many wonderful spring and summer programs that you will want to know about, and that's national as well. Cooperative extension just doesn't exist in Kentucky. And I will just highlight and post in the chat box as well some upcoming programs that Fayette County is going to be presenting. And one of those is Living with Loss. And as you know, we're in a series that hopefully you will, if needed, we've all been given a hand, and we have to play that hand we've been dealt with COVID. And so because of that, we have a series that is sort of helping us sort all the issues out over the past year that we've had to deal with. So on May the 13th, that's this Thursday, we will be talking about financial recovery, resiliency. So that is something that I think all of us have had to address. And so we'll invite you to join us on that virtual program. At 11 o'clock. So I'll put all this in the chat box. And then my next cook together is Rockin' Chicken Tacos, and that will be on June the 2nd. And again, I'm going to put a website in for summer youth programs. We have lots of camps. If you're looking for something for your youth, check out Cooperative Extension in all the counties, and I'll be specific with Fayette County in the chat box. And now I'll turn it over to Amanda.
Thanks, Diana. I popped in on one of her cooking classes last week, and it was fantastic. So highly recommend those if you have time to hop on Zoom while you're working and listen in. Updates from UK Alumni Career Services. On May the 19th, over the lunch hour, we're hosting Azetta Beatty. She's with UK HR Work Life for a great conversation on the work and parenting dance. So many of our clients are navigating the balance of being a parent and being in the workplace at the same time, as many are returning to in-office work, no longer in the office or no longer remote work. So join us for that conversation. I popped the registration link to that into the chat box. We would love to have you join. All right, Nicole, your turn for updates from STEPS.
About that, I keep forgetting to hit that unmute button. Alrighty, so definitely here to give you some updates about positions with STEPS. I could not give you one in particular, you guys. We have so many openings right now, 81 to be exact. So what we're going to do is put that link in the chat box here, and also we'll just share some job leads for us to post on LinkedIn also. But we have a variety of positions ranging from IT positions, let's see here, medical assistants, oh my gosh, let me see, medical records, lab technicians, even the Arboretum is looking for some grounds workers. We have administrative assistants. So there are a variety, dispatch officers, financial analysts. There are several. So you guys, please take out time to go there and visit our webpage. And actually, let me see here. I'll just stick it in there myself. And just see if there's something there that may be a good fit for you. As Mark mentioned earlier, I'd love to tell people that, when you're interviewing, you're not just seeing if the job is a good fit for you, but whether or not, let's see here, if something's a good fit for you, but and also if it's if you're a good fit for it, if it's a good fit for you, I should say. And there are 81 here, so please take out the time to look at those. Alrighty, and then let's see what else we have, you guys, before we close out here. Alrighty, okay, so next time on Job Club is what I wanted to mention here, and that's going to be May 25th. Okay, you guys mark that down. Make sure you register for this one. On May 25th, there's a panel of Job Club session success stories presented by recent Job Club attendees. This is going to be really interesting, you guys. So you get to see what you get out of attending Job Club. Alrighty. And so please don't forget to register at www.ukalumni.net/job club. If for some reason you forget to register, of course, we are on Facebook Live, okay? So we definitely would like for you guys to join us. And it looks like we have a raised hand here. Not exactly sure if you can see that, Amanda. Let's see here. What is that one for? Okay.
I think we're good, Nicole, to
You're
close out.
good?
It's okay.
Alrighty. Okay. Well, we're going to close out from there. So you guys, as I mentioned, feel free to visit the university website, click on temporary employment, and look at all those jobs. Alrighty. Okay. And even if you see something just in a career employment, you know, we're here to support you guys. But yeah, so take out the time to do that, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Share this information with a friend. Don't forget to register, and we will see you on May the 25th. Thank you so much, and thank you again, Mark, for this awesome presentation. Bye, you guys.